So this video is going to piss some people off, but it's the age-old story of a classic movie, TV show, or book that is taken by people in the modern day and made retarded. The type of people who look into everything for analogies and a hidden meaning. Oh yeah, and modern directors zapping all of the quality out of a franchise and making it shitty slop for teenage girls. Before we get into it, if you're sick of these people and you want to help out the channel, then maybe consider subscribing or supporting me over on Patreon. So I was contemplating whether or not to even make this video because I haven't read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I've always had Dracula and Frankenstein on my shelf, but never actually got around to reading them up until recently, where I'm starting Dracula. So I wasn't really going to make this video arguing about something that I hadn't read. But that's when I came to the realization, which is the harsh truth, but it's something that you kind of have to take into account. I'm a firm believer of how books can be way better than movies, and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein might be a case of that, but you have to realize that when you say Frankenstein, people don't think of that book. And I don't really agree with that, but it is the truth. For example, it's the same with any other literary character. I'm a massive fan of the book James Bond over any of the movie interpretations. But when I say James Bond, what do you think? You don't think of the book variation where he's the stone cold hard-boiled killer, but instead you think of Sean Connery flying around in a jetpack, or Pierce Brosnan throwing exploding pens. So yeah, it's annoying, but it's the truth, and it's why I had to make this video, because even though Mary Shelley's Frankenstein might take on some meaning that people are applying to it nowadays, which we'll get onto, I just don't believe that Frankenstein as a universally known story and the creature is not some sort of allegory for anything, including feminism, giving birth, or toxic masculinity. And any real fan of Frankenstein, like if you're a fan of the Universal movies or the Hammer ones, would know that the story is not about feminism. So that's my first point. I haven't read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I'm gonna get around to it soon. And I also haven't watched Gay Del Toro's brand new movie Frankenstein. And that's my name for the movie because it's just one big crock of shit.
Now, run. That was incredibly gay.
So that's just a quick disclaimer. I haven't watched this trash, I'm never going to. And if you're one of these people hyping it up and applying feminist ideology onto the story of Frankenstein, fuck you. So before we get onto the freaks on Twitter who just so happen to be middle-aged women who are loving this story, I wonder why. The reason is so unbelievably clear, I can't believe I need to explain this. So for the people who haven't done the research and aren't real fans of horror, there was once an actor called Boris Karloff in the 30s. The guy didn't have the type of face that would get him cast in comedies or romance movies. And after years of work in theatre, he didn't know that his entire demeanour would be a blessing in disguise. Because little did he know, a company called Universal was planning to make some movies starring some people who weren't exactly the pretty faces that could sell tickets. These movies would have dark, gothic lighting. They would break all of the rules of the time, being banned in many different states, taking inspiration from German Expressionism and Gothic novels that would soon go on to be known as the birth of horror movies as we know it. And there was many great directors and writers and producers behind this, but the two men that were leading the charge and were forever remembered was Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. Playing Dracula and Frankenstein and sometimes even switching roles, these two men were not the type of guys that would become stars that everybody knew and loved because they looked handsome. No, these were guys that looked like something straight out of a nightmare and had got them the roles. But they didn't just have to look like any new horror movie actor or anybody before. They could act it as well, better than anyone. And I don't give a shit when anyone says the original Universal Dracula and Frankenstein are some of the best horror movies ever made. And I'm talking like the top 10. I could do full videos breaking down every single movie, but for now I'm just gonna focus on Frankenstein because all of these freaks probably haven't even watched it, which is fucking insane because how can you talk about something that you don't even know the most iconic adaptation? Anyways, what I'm trying to say before you tune out is in the original Universal 1931 Frankenstein, you have the iconic Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein giving us a chilling performance. And once again, this guy gives off the aura of being a freaky scientist and not in some goofy way. That's one thing you'll realize when you are a true fan of horror movies, is that this goofy thing that's been brought up in recent years of Dracula and Frankenstein, these Halloween decorations that you see everywhere, is not actually what what it is. The original Universal horror movies like Frankenstein, Dracula, The Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Invisible Man, and then all of the sequels like Bride of Frankenstein, none of these movies are kiddie, goofy movies. As I said, Frankenstein was banned in multiple states because of its disturbing content. So these movies were not funny, they weren't for teenage girls to be gawking at on Twitter like it's some CW show. And the actors that starred in these movies were actually scary, and not in some fake way like Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, where you just jerk around like a retard. No, in a really scary way, where you can just stand still and look into the camera, and because of how good the makeup was, the acting, the cinematography, the lighting, it's still terrifying to this day. And now that you know all of that Boris Karloff gave the best performance of Frankenstein of all time, expanding on it with each movie, always managing to be terrifying, but you could also sympathize with the monster. Why? Because he was a creature that was created by a madman who wanted to play God. And anybody can relate to this monster because he's an outcast. And that's what it's about, and I'll never let anybody tell me otherwise. It's kind of like the X-Men, that people try to tell you it's about civil rights and black people and gay people. The X-Men is about being an outcast and not fitting in. That's all it is. It's all it ever was. And if you look any deeper, you're an asshole thinking in ways that nobody else did when they first saw this movie. So after that massive spiel that I just said, explaining why the actors need to be creepy and eerie, nothing like any other picture being made, in what world does that mean cast some gay dude like Jacob Elordi to come in and play the creature? No work was done in the makeup. The dude just has long hair and just one or two scars. It's not scary, it's not eerie, it's nothing like Frankenstein's monster, and the only people it appeals to is teenage girls who love this guy from his shitty woke TV shows. Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi were cast because they looked different and they looked creepy. How does that equate to, let's take one of the biggest guys in Hollywood right now because the entire world loves him, and let's just stick him in a role where he has to be some creepy, disgusting monster? It doesn't work like that one bit, and I just can't take any of this shit seriously when this is the casting decision. And the same goes for Dr. Frankenstein. Really, Oscar Isaac, the guy from the shitty Star Wars trilogy. Who the fuck thought that any of this was a good idea? As a fan of Universal horror, I could never watch this piece of trash and take it seriously. And the most important part ever, from the very first shot of Frankenstein, is gothic horror lighting. People throw around the term gothic horror not even knowing what it means. And it's very easy to understand what it means. Just press play on Dracula or Frankenstein. Foggy graveyards, disturbing subject matter, rainy castles late at night. And don't even get me started on Dracula, because that movie's visuals are some of the best ever done in the history of cinema, where Dracula's castle is filled with cobwebs and smoke and shadows. Not one bit of it is fake or lit super brightly. If you don't have any of that stuff, then you're missing the crucial elements of a real horror movie. But you're trying to make a Frankenstein movie, and I don't know what the fuck this is meant to be, but it doesn't look anyway gothic, and it doesn't look anyway scary. It's just some gay romantic thing for women that I wouldn't even call a horror movie. And speaking of those type of women who are absolutely infuriating, we just have a few of them here gaslighting people into believing something that just is not true. Ask anybody who's a fan of Universal horror or Frankenstein and ask them what it's about. Oh, it's about an evil scientist who takes his ambition too far, tries to play God, and in the end it falls back on the scientist for wanting too much power, causing his own creation to destroy him. Most perfectly shown at the end of Bride of Frankenstein, which is one of the best horror movies and endings of all time. That's all it's about. If you can't see that, I don't know what's wrong with you. Actually, I do know what's wrong with you. You're spasticated. Like this bitch, who's trying to trick people into believing that Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and everything about Frankenstein, all the movies, is actually one big allegory for the trauma that women go through when they're giving birth. And when you actually read this entire thing, I'm not even going to click into it. It's just some study from the 70s done by somebody who probably wanted to subvert classic works, lying to the world, telling you what Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is actually about. You're retarded, everything that you just said is wrong, and nobody out there actually believes it. This person wrote an essay in high school about how Frankenstein is actually an analogy for being transgender. Do I even have to explain how fucking slow that is? I don't think I need to. The only people who are into this type of shit are people who are dense. house. And you've probably never watched a Universal Frankenstein movie and is just coming in calling everything transgender and gay. Go home, you retard. And I could go on about this all day, but to be honest, I don't really care. I prefer to make a video talking about Universal horror. So if you ever want to see that, do let me know and maybe consider subscribing. And if you just so happen to be one of these new woke retards who's applying weird ideology to Frankenstein, go fuck yourself.